my screen really quick. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so 1 year ago this month is when I became a part of the Mastery Circle family. And if you had told me then that in a year's time I'll be presenting, I would have said you're out of your mind. So it's quite an honor, and I'm really, really excited to be presenting to this group. It's changed my life so much. So before we get started, I wanted to take a moment, just maybe settle, arrive in our space, get comfortable in your seat, maybe take a few deep breaths, maybe close your eyes as I read this quote from Yasir Chadley. Whatever put us here, me, the ocean, the sand, we are all one. We say I or you so we can communicate, but there is no I. There is no difference between I and you. I am you, you are me. There is only that. All right, let's get started. Sorry, I'm trying to. There you go. All right, so as Mary Grace mentioned, I'm studying consciousness, spirituality, and transpersonal psychology. And a few months ago, I did a presentation on a talk that Dr. Larry Dossey gave to the Scientific Medical Network on dreams and premonitions, what they tell us about healing, consciousness, and our destiny. And I thought that this group would enjoy and appreciate this talk. Full disclosure, I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm a student, but I find it very fascinating. And I think that there is a big lesson here for all of us. So I'm sort of reporting on it. But if you guys are interested, I can send a link later to the actual talk that Dr. Larry Dossey gave. And he's a very funny man, so I highly recommend his talks and interviews. A little bit about Larry Dossey. He is a physician from Texas, internationally recognized for his work on bringing spirituality to medicine. He has written a number of books on consciousness, power of prayer, premonitions, and lots of other subjects. So premonitions, what are they? The word premonition comes from the two Latin words pre, which means before, and moneo, to warn. So it literally means a pre-warning, an anticipation of an event without conscious reason. Well, they've been called other things such as gut feelings, intuition, sixth sense, hunches, second sight. They don't always appear in dreams. They can also happen in waking state, but dreams are a great avenue for them. And premonitions are generally about something that's not very nice. So what are they for? While they can warn us of nice things, they often precede disasters or life-threatening events. So they give us a tremendous survival advantage. They serve as a survival function if we take them seriously. And this makes biological sense from an evolutionary perspective and might be incorporated in our biology. Larry believes that they're a form of preventative medicine. They often warn us of upcoming challenges to our health, and if we pay attention to them, we can stay alive. Now, some of the interesting examples that Larry talks about. One is the story of Amanda, a young mother in Washington state who's awakened one night by a horrible dream. She dreamed that a chandelier in the next room had fallen from the ceiling into her sleeping infant's crib and crushed the baby. In her dream, she sees a clock in the baby's room that reads 4:35, and wind and rain are hammering the windows. Extremely upset, she wakes up her husband and tells him of her dream, and he says, "Go back to sleep, it's nothing. It's silly." But the dream is so frightening that Amanda goes into the baby's room, brings the baby back to bed with her. And soon they're awakened by a loud crash in the baby's room. They rush to see that the chandelier had fallen and crushed the crib, and that the clock in the room reads 4:35, and wind and rain are howling outside. Her dream premonition was camera-like in detail, including the specific event, the precise time, and even a change in the weather. There is also this OBGYN in Oklahoma City who knows ahead of time when his patients are going to deliver because he gets a strange feeling in his chest when the time is near. It's like an alarm goes off. So it's so reliable that the OB nurses that are caring for his patients have learned to ask him how his chest feels, and that's how they know when a patient is going to deliver. Research shows that people often avoid riding planes and trains on the day that they crash compared to normal days. On days of the crash, the vacancy rate on the train is unusually low. And this type of premonition is usually unconscious. People don't say the train is going to crash, I'm going to cancel my reservation. They usually report a vague sense that something is wrong, something just doesn't feel right, and they find some reason to change their plans. There is also an event of an entire group of church members who were late for choir practice one weekday night at a little church in Nebraska. The church exploded and would have almost certainly have killed them had they been there. The odd thing is that none of them had any conscious premonition that the explosion would occur, but they stayed away nonetheless. Being late was the unconscious behavior that saved their life. And 9/11 resulted in the greatest outpouring of premonitions and precognitive dreams in history. If you Google dreams and premonitions of 9/11, you'll find millions of websites of people who reported their premonitions and dreams before 9/11 happened. Children are sensitive to premonitions, especially in dreams. An example is what happened in Aberfan in Wales in 1966, when a mountain of coal waste came down the hill and took out a junior school, killing 116 children and teachers and other people. A psychiatrist heard that people had premonitions and dreams before this happened, and he investigated them. One of them was a 10-year-old girl who said to her mother the night before the disaster, "Mommy, I'm not afraid to die. I dreamt I went to school and it wasn't there. Something black had come all over it." She was killed the next day. So at this point, I would like to take maybe about 10-15 minutes and see if we can share some of our personal experiences with premonitions, gut feelings, events like that. And I'll go first, and then I'll stop sharing the screen, and everyone else can share if they like. So almost 10 years ago, my partner Todd and I decided to move in together. On the Friday before the Saturday that we were moving, I was busy at work and something told me to call my renter's insurance and transfer it to the new place. I tried to ignore it. I was busy, but it just kept nagging at me. So I stopped what I was doing and I called the insurance company and transferred the policy to the new apartment. We moved into our new apartment in Pasadena on that Saturday. And on Monday morning, the place burnt down. And this is what it looked like a few hours later. The insurance, of course, covered everything, including our belongings. They took everything that was left and cleaned it, etc. But the bigger problem was that because the fire had started in our unit and the cause was unknown, we were held reliable. And our landlord and 4 other neighbors that were affected by the fire put major claims and lawsuits against us. And the insurance company handled all of it. I paid out a lot of money to them. Had I not transferred the insurance policy on that Friday, we would have been liable for hundreds of thousands of dollars in claims and lawsuits. So, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but my premonition saved us, really saved us. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I would love it if you guys have any examples of premonitions that you've had and you'd like to share. Bill, Patricia, and then Mary Grace. Or Tim, sorry.
I'm sorry, I was like this. Sorry, the next person, please.
Tim, sorry.
No problem.
Okay. When I was married, my husband was a journalist that worked for CBS News in the 80s. He would go very often to El Salvador to cover the war there. And I was used to it. But for that particular trip, I was very concerned. I filled his suitcase with white handkerchiefs. And he had a photographer's vest, and I put one in his pocket. When he's in El Salvador, to make a long story short, he and 9 other journalists are caught in a crossfire in a battle between the army and the guerrillas. Mm-hmm. And in those days, wherever they saw either the army or the guerrillas saw something of metal, they would shoot without asking. And they were hiding in high grass. And at some point they heard steps, and my ex-husband found a white handkerchief that he tied on the boom of the microphone, and he waved it, screaming in Spanish, "Don't shoot, we are journalists." And it was the guerrillas that saw them, didn't shoot at them, and actually helped them escape. Of the 10 journalists, 1 didn't make it. He got shot and immediately died. And I knew in that trip something was going to happen. And I had several dreams. I knew my sister was pregnant 2 weeks before she told me. I mean, I can tell you many stories like that.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Patricia. Tim.
Yes, I'll share one. I've had a number of incidents, but this one, I happened to be over in Tokyo on business, and I was in a district called the Shimbuku district, and it was a rainy night, and I was riding the subway, and the subway came out above ground, and it was raining, and in Tokyo, there's lights all over. It's unbelievable how many lights are in that city. And I thought, you know what? I think I will get out 1 stop before the Shimbuku stop and walk along and see the lights. And it was raining. I didn't have an umbrella, but I just had this strong feeling I should get out and walk along. And I got out and I walked along in the rain. I don't know, maybe it was a half mile, a mile to get to the next stop where I would have gotten out for my hotel. And that night they had a sarin gas attack in the subway at that stop. And there was this group, years ago, there was a group that was doing these gas attacks with nerve agent in the subways. And I just had this feeling about getting out and walking back a stop before. So could have saved my life.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Crazy. Wow.
Mm.
Mary Grace and then Levita.
This is really a premonition, or I'm not sure what to call it. My sister had many years ago. This is my older sister. When her son and daughter were 3 and 5 years old, they were in their car seats in the back seat. She was in the front seat, and she was driving just down the street. And the signal was red, so she stopped. The signal turned green. She put her foot on the accelerator and nothing happened. It wouldn't go. She looked down, she revved the engine to see, yep, it was running. She changed gears. She tried it again, kept trying it back and forth, couldn't get the car to move forward. And right at that moment, a giant double semi carrying all of this huge rock and gravel had lost his brakes and went across the intersection, and it would have killed them all.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Levita.
Yes, thank you. My son was in the Air Force, my oldest son, in Ipswich. And this is long before our cell phones and all the technology that we currently enjoy. And I had a dream that he was on a bluff over an ocean I didn't recognize, and that a whole gang descended on him and was stabbing him. And I woke up with a start, and I'd never made a long distance or overseas phone call. I didn't even know how to do it. And it set me on a journey of discovering how to do it. And by the time I got to the air base, he was in Ipswich. When I got to transferred over to his commanding officer, they said that he indeed had been attacked in the night in Amsterdam by a group of rowdies, and that he was in the hospital and had been stabbed.
Oh.
And it was just one of those things. And it's like, there's been many. And through those, I've learned to pay very close attention. And then he was able to call home when he was, eventually. But at the time, it was just, I was horrified. I was sure they'd killed him. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Pamela.
It was in New York City, and I was with a friend in New York City. We were to visit the World Trade Center and to have a drink on the top because we heard the view of Manhattan was really spectacular. So we walk in, and I never had this experience before. I walked into the World Trade Center, and I was feeling a little uncomfortable. And then we get onto the elevator, and we had a ways to go up, and my whole body, out of my mouth, I could not stop these words. I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel good. Can we go down? I don't feel good. And I don't know, 40 stories up or whatever it was, we finally got out to the drinking area. And I said, I want to go down. I don't feel comfortable. And my friend said, let's just have a drink. I said, okay, let's have a drink fast. And so the view was spectacular up there on the top of the World Trade Center. And I took one sip. I said, I want to leave. I don't feel good. Please, anyway, we drank fast. We went down. A week later, the 2 towers of the World Trade Center were crashed into, and all these people died. And that was a premonition, not of my brain at all. It was something in my body, and kinesthetically that I felt, but I couldn't. I just kept saying, I'm so uncomfortable. And I happened to be on a boat leaving Manhattan then. and looking at the skyline that I had seen so much with the two towers for so many years that were no longer there. It was like, wow, we get information, we get communication, you know, and sometimes we save people because of it, we save ourselves, or we just don't know, we don't know what it is. And I didn't know what it is, but now as some of you were saying, I'm taking more, certainly paying more attention to things like that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. From what I've learned, bodily sensations are a great indicator. Like when your body literally tells you something's wrong, something's wrong. Anyone else would like to share? Bonnie.
This was in the mid to late 80s, actually probably would have mid. And one night I was driving home and I lived in the Fairfax area, and as I turned off of Fairfax onto Rosewood, I kept having this feeling. There were 6 blocks, east of Fairfax, and every block I just kept feeling like someone was going to come across and sideswipe me. There was just this such a strong feeling. And then when I got home, I talked to my next door neighbor, and he was he was about 70, yeah, let's see, he was about 70 at that time. And no, he had to be in his 80s, but anyway, so he and his brother-in-law were very, very, very close. His brother-in-law, sister and brother-in-law owned the apartment building, and when I came home, he told me that, and that's what it was. Yeah, he was about 70s, but his brother-in-law was like 87, still a practicing lawyer, and some kids were joyriding, and not too far away. They lived in that area, about a mile away, and he was killed by kids joyriding and just going through. Just stop sign, but it was so strong. And then moments later, when he told me that, I was like, wow. Yeah, because I knew him too. Anyway, it was very, very strong feeling. Wow.
Amazing. Thank you. Danielle, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have lots of examples, so I'll just like pick. Basically, in November 2001, a few months after 9/11, I had just moved from Chicago to Los Angeles, and a friend of mine in Chicago had a conference in San Diego. So I drove down to San Diego to spend some time with her, and I shared her hotel room. And during the night, I had this horrible dream, and I woke up with a start. And the dream was literally of a plane just nose diving straight down and bursting into flames. And I woke up and I told my friend about it, and it was and I was like, yeah, she said, well, we're all still suffering from recent events. But actually later the day, the news reported that a plane had gone down exactly in that way. It was, I think, the first half of November in 2001. And I don't remember in which state, but the description was exactly like my dream. And it freaked me out a bit, I have to say. I mean, I have other examples, like my mother actually had a premonition that her mother would die a week before she actually did. And she actually took me and my sister to see her on the weekend based on that premonition. And I mean, my whole life, so many times I find myself just spontaneously taking action on something, just deviating from my plan completely, just following an instinct. And that instinct turns out to somehow save my life. Or, I mean, my whole life is like, I never really think of it as premonition, but I sometimes get like overtaken by this urge to just do something, and then it turns out to be the right thing I need to do. So I'm really interested in this talk.
Great, thank you for sharing. Linda, and then
Mim?
Mim, sorry. Mim and then Linda.
Thank you. My mother died in 1997, and I was living out here, and our family plot is back east in Wilmington, Delaware. And I had been working with the funeral director back there for some time in anticipation of this. And I told the funeral director, I said, you know, before my mother moved out here, she had her headstone put on her grave. We have a family plot back there. And because she was concerned that her children would be negligent and not put the headstone up, she did it ahead of time. This was my mother, very willful and very controlling and planning ahead. The only thing that was not on the tombstone was the date of death. Okay, so her grave, her anticipated grave, was at the end of the plot, opposite her father. And next to her was my dad, who was already there. And on the other side of my dad was another empty plot. So I made it very clear to the funeral director that her plot was the one on the end, and it had a tombstone just in case they thought somebody was already in there. So when she died, we went back east as a family, and we met with the rabbi on Friday. The funeral was on Sunday. And after we met with the rabbi, I said to my friend who was with me, I said, you know, I have the strangest feeling that they have opened the wrong grave. I just know it. So we drove over to the cemetery, and damn it if I wasn't right. And I called up the funeral director and I said, what was her, Ann? I said, you opened the wrong grave. She said, not to worry. The grave diggers are over in the other cemetery. I'll call them and have them come over. And we watched them. They came with their little grave digging machine, and they opened up the accurate grave and they closed up the other one. But it was the strangest. I don't know. I just knew. So that was, I'm glad I did it, because otherwise we would have been arrived there and they would have put her in the wrong. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda.
Well, when the last time I saw my mother, she did a couple of things. She made amends with me in a beautiful way. And then during dinner, she talked about her fears. And I remember feeling far away from them. Her fear of old age, of what's happening. She can't walk. What's going to happen? Where is she going to go? She was very fearful. And I remember feeling heavy and distant. And then she had a car crash that took her life. So I think she was prepared. Anyway, I'm thinking of that now as you bring this up.
Thank you, Linda. All right, I am going to share my screen again. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, because I can't see you guys. All right, so is this stuff possible? So this idea that mind is confined to the brain and the body and to the present time is simply not true. Nothing in modern physics says that we can't gain information from the future. No experiment in the history of science has shown that time flows in one direction, or if it even flows at all. There's several theories about nature of time. One is closed time, which says events happen only in the present moment, so no connection to the future or the past. It's about here and now, not there and then. Then there's a concept of open time, which says events happening in the present can be influenced by events in the past or the future. So there and then, not just here and now. And physics is proving this right now. So our consciousness may choose to sample there and then rather than here and now. Another theory is blocked universe, which says all events which have happened and will happen and are happening have already happened. It's our sequential experience of these events that give us the idea of floating time. And to quote Jung, linear space and time simply do not exist at the level of collective unconscious. The future is unconsciously prepared long in advance and can be accessed. So can we cultivate premonitions? Here are some things that we can do that help. Keeping a dream diary seems to make us more premonition prone, as Tim was talking about. There is also the role of belief. Children tend to be more premonition prone because they're not yet a culture to believe that things like this can't happen. Daily meditation practice seems to be the behavior that correlates most strongly with cultivating premonitions. And finally, practice. As George Leonard says, the more you practice cultivating the extraordinary, the luckier you get. So how can we separate fantasy from premonitions? Research shows that premonitions usually come in vivid dreams, reoccurring dreams, shared dreams, especially if dreams are shared by people who are close, dreams that deal with death, and to quote Jung again, if a dream deals with death, take it seriously because you might not get a second chance. And also premonitions that are associated with bodily symptoms and sensations in dreams or waking life. So what is the big lesson in all of this? What is the vision that premonitions hold for the future? Larry Dossey considers premonitions as an incredible gift. He says that although they are an aid to our physical survival, their main contribution is in providing us with an expanded vision of who we are and what our destiny may be. They show that we're more than a physical brain and body. Brains can't operate outside the present or beyond the body, but our consciousness can. And premonitions reveal that something about us is timeless. A quote from Larry, "I believe that these kinds of experiments and experiences point like an arrow to soul-like immortal quality, to consciousness. So I regard this whole area as indirect evidence for immortality." The non-locality applies to space and time. And if there's some aspect of our consciousness that is non-local, it means that it's boundless. Boundless means that you cannot separate one consciousness from another if there are no boundaries between them. And if this is so, then all minds in some dimension come together to form a single unitary consciousness. Our ancestors used to refer to it as the universal mind, the divine mind, the cosmic consciousness, and Jung, of course, called it the collective unconscious. Now, it's important to point out that some of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century agree with this. To name a few, Edmund Schrödinger, David Bohm, Gregory Bateson, and of course, Albert Einstein. So here's Larry's message. This has profound ethical implications because it suggests an intrinsic unity and oneness between everybody. And unless we get this as a species, we're going to be at continual risk of exterminating ourselves and the only environment we have. He believes that deep gut level, heart level appreciation of non-local oneness and intrinsic unity between everybody is the only hope we have out of our current situation. And this understanding helps us to rethink some of the ethical mandates that have dawned through human history, such as the Golden Rule. It helps us to perhaps transform the Golden Rule from do unto to others as you would have them do unto to you, to something like this. Be kind to others because in some sense, they are you. Thank you.
Great presentation.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Sara, would you like to talk about some of the things that have driven you to this point of studying so much about premonitions?
Sure. I was living my life, minding my own business like everybody, and then this pandemic happened and sort of made me decide to go back to school and study for my master's program. And I searched and searched and searched, and I like to say that this program found me because I was at a place that we were moving to Italy. I really wanted to study at Pacifica, but we were moving to Italy and there was just no way. So I found this program and I fell in love with it, and it was it's been really amazing. So that's what I'm studying, transpersonal psychology. And one of the so early on we had to do this presentation. Rena actually was part of it. We got to choose our topic, and we watched a bunch of videos and saw a lot of talks and listened to different things, and we picked this one. And it was a really, I think, transformative experience for all of us. It was really fascinating to learn the science behind it. And I mean, this presentation was much longer and there was a lot of, I don't know, perhaps boring to some people, a lot of science and scientific research into it that I took out because, we didn't have a lot of time. So that's how I got into it.
Would you like to ask the group any other questions? We do have some more time, 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I would love if anyone has anything else to share or comment on. I would love to.
There's a book called The Ending of Time, which is a dialogue between David Bohm and Krishnamurti. It's a fantastic book, and it talks about these things, that time is, an illusion, basically. Get a chance, read it. It's great.
Maybe you could put it in the chat for all of us. Thank you, Paul.
Or send an email. Yeah. I'm a big follower of Jeff Kripal, Kripal, and his focus now is the impossible, except it really happens. And it's this whole area and more. And there's one particular woman that I've learned about, and she's had lots of premonitions since her near-death experience about 25 years ago. And like, for instance, the plane crash with Sully. What she does is documents her premonitions. And so she'll get up from a dream, or sometimes she'll have what's like a waking vision, and she'll write an email and she'll email it to Jeff and to a couple of other people just to document it. So before the crash with Scully, where the plane, the birds got into the engines of the plane, she knew it was United. She saw a plane go down on a body of water, and then she saw all the people standing out on the wings. And she's had a lot of those. I mean, very significant premonitions. But it is really interesting that what she's come to, and what Jeff Kripal have come to, is that her premonitions, her visions that she sees, and perhaps other people too, isn't of the actual event, but it's of the news report after. So for instance, the pictures of Scully's plane down in the water with the people on the wings, or she saw, there was one vision that she had of a taxi cab with a plane plunged right straight down and the tail sticking up on a bridge, which happened in Russia. But those were the exact images of newspaper pictures. So it's sort of interesting how we're picking those things up. So I love this whole area. I really appreciate your presentation.
Sara, you mentioned that Rena was maybe a partner in this. I wonder if Rena would have anything to say on any special insights she had while working on the project with you.
Hi, yeah, I mean, Sara has put it beautifully to you, and thank you so much all of you for receiving it. And it was really wonderful to hear your stories as well, because we didn't really get a chance to hear much, because it was a scholarly presentation. So it was more to get a mark and to really just put across information and the arguments for and against. And as somebody that really has a lot of premonitions. Sorry, I've got an ice cream van that's decided to come and say hello as well in the presentation. And as someone who has a lot of premonitions, and it's a regular part of my life, but I had to come from a very critical view. I decided to come from the side of where we were trying to challenge these notions, and it was just really interesting to see both sides. But what's really, I think, coming to me now is how common these are and how we all seem to experience this. Yeah. And I feel that it's just cultivating this skill is really imperative for all of us. And I'm just thinking I need to be, my dreams have become a lot more vivid of late. So I need to be more stringent with keeping a dream dictionary for sure. But thank you for receiving all of this. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here and to see Sara present it in this way. It's lovely to revisit. So thank you
for being here.
Yeah. Sara and Rena too, I guess. I have a question about what the difference is between a premonition and intuition. It just kind of popped up as a question. I have no answer for it. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, or if anybody else in the group does.
I think it's the same thing. They're, we just call them different things, but you're getting knowledge from a source that's not conscious. There's something coming to you that you don't, it doesn't make sense. Reason just doesn't, logic doesn't work. That's what I think. I don't know if anyone else.
I feel like premonitions are more the actual, like an event or a dream, and intuition is the sense. So it would be so for example, like if you were in your day-to-day life, intuition about something happening, or just just a very small thing, whereas a premonition would possibly be like a whole dream or a whole event. I'm not sure. That's how I would see it, but it's very personal and subjective. So
Sam.
Yeah. I was a therapist for 40 years, and I developed an instinct about people, when I was treating them, working with them. And then in meeting people outside of that setting, I also have kind of gut reactions. It's not in the head, it's in my body. And I either know that this is a person that I will connect with, or this is a person that I'm going to have a problem with. And there's no content. It's kind of like I read their body. And I think those are, I don't know if I'd call them premonitions, but it seems to turn out to be the case, my initial impressions. I've often wondered, well, am I being judgmental? But it's my body, it's not my mind, and it's an instinctual thing. So anyway, for me, that's instinct, intuition, and maybe it's premonition too, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have experienced when we, like Pamela's example, like we want to do something or go somewhere, and our body just, you get sick. And like I've had experiences where I literally get sick in my stomach, that I'm, my body is screaming, don't go, don't do this. And every time I've not listened to it, I've paid the price.
I went to the great oracle Google about this question, and basically what they've said, a number of sources said, intuition is a now experience. You're like right there, and it just hits you, and you have the intuition right now about something or some person or what to say. The premonition is a longer term, something about the future, and often appears in dreams.